If you're struggling to recall something, it could be because you didn't encode it effectively, or it could mean that you're just having trouble retrieving it. That means that the information is stored, but you're having trouble accessing it or getting it out. Let's have a look at retrieval. So it turns out, you are probably not going to be surprised to hear that cues help to facilitate retrieval. So if you're forgetting something and you give yourself a cue, or somebody gives you a cue, it's going to be much easier for you to recall what it is that you are trying to recall. So retrieval, with retrieval, it helps if the conditions at encoding match the conditions at retrieval. So actually a ton of retrieval research is focused on this idea of actually how do we match up with encoding, because that's going to provide the ideal circumstances for retrieval. When you're encoding information, the context or parts of the context get swept up into the memory that you're creating. And so those external details become part of the memory, and in fact can become cues to facilitate retrieval. So the consequence is that if you reinstate the context, you've given yourself a retrieval cue. And you've probably experienced exactly this 1,000 times. When you leave a room with the intention of doing something, like you're making yourself a little snack in the kitchen, or maybe arranging some flowers in the kitchen, and you think, I better go set my alarm clock. And then you go in your bedroom and you're like, why am I here? And you just have to go back to the kitchen to recall it, because context is serving as a retrieval cue. And so this is often referred to as context-dependent memory, or another term is encoding specificity. So Gordon and Badley created this, they conducted this experiment in 1975. It's classic. It's in like every intro psych textbook, because it illustrates this point so beautifully. It's actually a really compelling study. So they recruited trained scuba divers and divided them into two groups. So half of these trained scuba divers learned a list of words while scuba diving, and the other group learned the list while they were on land. Now, both groups actually were divided and tested under the same circumstances as encoding, or the opposite. So when there was a match between the conditions of retrieval and encoding, or at encoding and retrieval, so that would be the scuba diver group, or the land group. That is where we've got that match. So let's look at the results as a function of these four conditions. So in terms of average recall, you can see that the two outside conditions are producing the best performance. Those are the two conditions where we have matching conditions at encoding with matching conditions at retrieval. And that's all that really matters here, right? It doesn't matter if they studied while underwater or on land. It really just matters if there was that match between conditions. And that produced the superior recall. So the surrounds were acting as a retrieval cue. Now, context-dependent learning is similar in nature to another concept called state-dependent learning. This is, state-dependent learning is actually about, instead of like outside contexts, it's actually about your inside context. And so that means things like your physiological state, like hungry or tired or grumpy. So we do see mood congruency effects where if you are grumpy at the time of encoding some information, it means that you're going to be better at recalling that information when you're grumpy during retrieval. Mood here is literally serving as a retrieval cue. It's why it's so easy to remember all the things that make you mad about your partner when you're already mad at them. Right? You're just like, that person, I'm so mad at them for this reason. And also last week, this reason. And it's also why the opposite is true. If you're really super happy with your partner, you might be like, you're the best. I can't think of a single thing wrong with you. Mood congruency effect.